Hi, friends. Today I want to talk to you about some books that help me get out of a reading slump. These may not be the best books ever written, they may not even be my favorite books, but these books, what makes them special is they are easy to read and they are hard to put down. And they helped me get out of a reading slump, and I still think about them years later after reading them. I have some thrillers and some fantasy books for you. These are primarily the genres that I read. I might eventually do like a romance or something else, but I'm going to stick to my wheelhouse and what I usually read. So let me get into them. Let's talk about the thrillers that can get you out of a reading slump. The first book that I think about is What Lies Between Us by John Mars. This book is about a mom and daughter, and they have dinner together every other night. That's kind of how the book begins. After dinner, Nina, the daughter, ends up helping her mom up to her bedroom in the attic and then proceeds to chain her to the floor. The premise of this is very wild. There are a ton of secrets. There's so many twists that happen, and I just kept flipping. I could not get enough, and I highly, highly recommend it. The next thriller that would definitely get anybody out of a slump is The Death of Mrs. Westaway. This is about a young woman who ends up getting a letter in the mail saying that she is an heiress to a fortune for a family member that she has never heard of. Intrigued by this, she ends up going to meet this family, and she's there for the reading of the will, and she ends up getting more than she thought she would get. And the family is trying to figure out how she's involved. She's trying to figure out how she's involved too, because she has no idea what's going on. This is very reminiscent of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, because there is a children's poem that is very prominent in this book, and it kind of foreshadows things that are happening in the book. I really loved that there was like a paranormal aspect, or it alluded to a paranormal aspect, and it was just really, really good. It was a little bit slow, but I still think it could get somebody out of a reading slump. When I first got into reading, I think this was in like 2018, I read Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Didn't know anything about it going into the book, and the ending just shocked me. I think this was one of the first thrillers that I really read that stood out to me, and it still sticks in my brain. Lock Every Door is about a young woman that is hired as an apartment sitter. There are some very strange rules to this apartment, like you have a curfew, you can't let anybody else into the apartment. There's just a couple rules that she has no problem following because she's happy to get paid what she's being compensated with. But then she notices that there's a lot of other apartment sitters living in the same building, and one of them turns up missing. So she kind of takes it upon herself to figure out what's going on, and you will not believe the ending. Like, I could not see this coming from a mile away. If you really, really want a twist ending that you would probably never guess in like a million years, read this one. Lock Every Door is kind of for a younger audience, but so is my next recommendation, and that is Holly Jackson's Not Quite Dead Yet, or her Good Girls Guide to Murder series. Not Quite Dead Yet is about a young woman that is attacked during a home invasion, and she is given like weeks to live because she has a brain bleed that's inoperable. And so she decides that she's going to solve her murder before she actually dies. It's a really cool premise. I love that while the book progresses, like the tone of her writing changes and she becomes more and more disabled because of the brain bleed. It was really, really unique. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is about a young woman named Pip, and she is obsessed with a murder that happened in her own town. And so she decides to take it upon herself to dig deeper into that murder. And there is kind of like an interview podcast thing, so I highly recommend the audiobook for this. But this is a book series. There are 3 books and a companion novel. This book I could not put down. I was staying up late to read, and I haven't done that in a long, long time. So I definitely think that this is a great page turner, and you're going to want to know what happens in the end. I have a couple honorable mentions for thrillers, and that would be Finley Donovan is Killing It and Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. These books made me laugh out loud. Like, I love the banter. I think that the writing is witty for both of these books. Both of these authors are great. And I just couldn't get enough of our main characters, even though they are vastly different. Finley Donovan is a newly divorced mom. She's trying to figure it out. She is an aspiring author, and she ends up going to lunch and she's pitching her idea to her publicist when somebody overhears her and thinks that Finley is a hit woman, and she hires Finley to kill her husband. Finley is like, what the heck? What is going on? And then the husband turns up dead. And the woman thinks that Finley's behind it, so she pays Finley off, and Finley ends up getting involved in way over her head. Her hijinks just progresses through the books. Her relationship with her housekeeper, Vero, is so wonderful. I love them both so much, and it's just hilarious. It's just a good time, and you're gonna want to know what happens in every book because they're just so funny and high stakes, but also very fast paced. Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers is about an older woman who runs a tea shop, and there is a dead body found in her tea shop. So she takes it upon herself to kind of solve this murder. So she ends up figuring out all the suspects, gathers them together for dinner, and starts interrogating them. I just love Vera's approach to life. She thinks that food and loving somebody is the way to get them to confess. Even though she treats them all like they're a suspect, she still does deeply care for these other people. There are 2 books in the Vera Wong series, and there are 5 books in the Finley Donovan series. So if you need something a little bit longer, then I would definitely recommend those books. Moving on to fantasy, this is primarily what I read, so this was really hard for me to narrow down to a handful of recommendations, but I think I did a good job. My first recommendation is something that I just finished like yesterday, and I just couldn't stop listening to it, and that is The Book Eaters by Sunny Dean. This is about a mom and a son, and the mom is going to go to the end of the world for her son. That is the easiest way I can sum it up. However, this is an urban fantasy, so it's set in our world in the UK, and mom is a book eater, so she literally just eats books and kind of consumes that knowledge when she eats it. It's actually really cool. I wish that that's how life was. I wish that I could just eat a book and just know all about it. Her son is a mind eater, so he literally sucks people's brains out and kind of takes on their personality. It is very interesting. Obviously, you can't go around eating everybody, so there is a moral dilemma of her feeding her son people, and they are looking for a cure. There are so many moving pawns in this book. There is the mother and son relationship. Mother has a relationship with her brother who is working against her. She also has help along the way, getting a cure for her son. There's so many moving pieces. It is very high stakes because their lives are in danger, and it is so good. This book is nearly 300 pages, and it probably took me 6 hours to read because it was just so good. And it's blurbed by one of my favorite authors. I'll get to that in a minute, but V. Schwab blurbed this, and she said, "I devoured this." I thought that was very clever. The next page turner that I'd like to recommend is The Husbands. This is also another urban fantasy. Really, I feel like it's magical realism, but this is a book about a woman with a magical attic. That's the best way I can sum it up. One day she has a man in her house, and he says that he's her husband, and she's like, "Who are you? What is going on?" She ends up sending him into the attic for something, and the man that comes down is not the man that went up. Turns out her attic can switch her husband. And it's not just she has this man who says he's her husband. She literally has her whole house changes, her photos change, her physical appearance changes depending on who she's married to in the moment. It's very, very cool. I really loved the magical realism aspect of this. I thought it was such a unique idea of who we're with really does affect who we are. It also shows how independent we can be as well. I also loved how uniquely different each husband was. It wasn't like, oh, here's Tom and here's Tom Jr. It was just very unique. The next book that I would recommend is Blood Over Brighthaven by N.L. Wang. Now we are getting into a higher fantasy because this is set not in our world, but it is not very complicated. There's not really a complicated magic system. It kind of breaks it all down. Blood Over Brighthaven is about a young woman who ends up getting into the High Magistry. She is the only woman that's ever been in this position. And it does talk about really her position as a woman in power, because the High Magistry does have a lot of political power in this world. But her main objective is to study how to power the city with their specific magic system. What she finds out is very morally wrong. And so this is her trying to come to terms with what she knows her whole life and then going against the fray. There is a little bit of a romance in this book, and I really, really did enjoy that. I think that this is worth picking up if you like a little bit of higher fantasy, like a little bit of magic. It is kind of set in academia, so it's not too terribly complicated, but it is really, really good. Getting a little bit cozier now, I would recommend A Psalm for the Wild Built. This is about a tea monk, and their job is to go around and serve tea, kind of get to know people that way. That is their whole goal in life. They get this urge to go out into the wilderness, which is very uncharted. While going out into the wilderness, this monk finds a robot. Robots and humans have not had any interaction for centuries, and the robot is so excited, and the tea monk is not so certain how they feel. But this is such a cozy fantasy. I love the relationship between the tea monk and the robot. I feel like Becky Chambers did a really good job describing the desire for something more, like more adventure, more out of life than just your occupation. And I really felt that in the pages. This is a very short book. There's a sequel to this book. It's such a cute novel, and it definitely focuses on nature, meets technology, and it's cool. It's a cool, unique read. I would definitely pick it up. Sticking with the cozy theme, I would definitely recommend Legends and Lattes. This is about an orc who used to be a hero, and in her retirement, she decides to open up a coffee shop. She's obviously faced with some sort of problem while setting up this coffee shop, like for the fact that nobody's ever heard of coffee, but it is her building her relationships in her community, and it's really, really sweet. There are 3 books to this series so far. I believe there are going to be more published. It is like drinking a nice warm cup of coffee. I just love that feeling that these books give me. I do have a couple honorable mentions for fantasy. Like I said, this is primarily what I read, so I have a lot of honorable mentions. First, honorable mention is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I love V.E. Schwab. I love this book. Addie's just special to me. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is about a woman named Addie, and she ends up in an arranged marriage, and she does not want to get married. On the day of her wedding, she ends up selling her soul to the devil, and he says, okay, I'll make you immortal, but nobody will remember you. So anytime Addie is out of eyesight from somebody, they forget her. So literally, like if I was to walk into another room, I would forget Addie. Like, it's crazy. She goes like this for 300 years. We go through little glimpses of Addie's life in different time periods and how she has interacted with history. It's actually really unique, but 300 years into living like this, and somebody finally remembers her, and it's so cute. It's so cute. It's very, very slow. It's just a very slow-paced book. So if you want something that is not high stakes, you can take your time digesting it, Addie LaRue is definitely for you. My next honorable mention, and it's an honorable mention because I feel like everybody has already read this book, but that is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This is about a young woman named Katniss, and she is thrust into the Hunger Games, which is a survival of the fittest challenge that she goes up against other people from different districts, and she basically has to compete for her life. I think that this is truly a classic, which is crazy to say because it's been published in my lifetime, but I feel like this is truly going to be a classic, and I would highly recommend this series if you have not read it already. My next recommendation is also very high stakes. I remember reading this years ago, and it's over 500 pages, and I devoured this book in like 3 days. I wasn't able to put it down. Even while I was working, I was turning my pages, trying to just soak up this book because I couldn't stop reading it. And that book is Children of Blood and Bone. This book is about a young woman who ends up getting the opportunity to bring back magic to her country, and she is going up against the prince who's trying to get rid of magic for everybody. I really can't remember all the details because I read this book so long ago, but I do remember that it was such a page turner. I did not end up continuing this series. I tried the audiobook for the second book and I just couldn't get into it, but maybe I will try the next book. I'm not 100% sure. But this book was such a page turner for me. My last recommendation is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This kind of is more magical realism. This book is about a young woman that wakes up in the Midnight Library, and her Midnight Library is an opportunity to go back and change any choice that she has made in her life, whether that's something she ate for breakfast or a larger choice of like where she went to college or who she ended up dating or marrying, that kind of situation. So we get to see her live out these different choices, and if she is happy with that choice and happy in that life, then she gets to stay in that life. And I think that this book does such a good job of asking that what if we had done things differently, but also showing that maybe it worked out the way it's supposed to. If you like books like that, similar to The Husbands, where what if it worked out this way kind of question, I think that The Midnight Library is for you. That's all the recommendations that I have. Like I said, maybe I will do a romance one. Let me know in the comments down below if you'd be interested in seeing that, or if you have any books that you would recommend for getting out of a reading slump. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and I love reading your comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon in a new video. Happy reading. Let's talk about thrillers first. You gonna sneeze again? Are you good? You're so cute. About a young woman named Piper. Is it Pip? Pip. And there is a second one in the series called A Prayer for the Crown Sky Crown. My first honorable mention is The Invisible